It's 4 o'clock in Radio Cairo. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk, and this is time for World of Info. Dua Muhammad is with me on the controls, and let's start right away.
The music is playing.
We're coming live from Studio 3 in this Thursday afternoon. Our direct phone line number is 257-89407. You can reach us and call us, and we'll put you on air. And of course, today is the world of books. And as you know, the rule of the game is that we present 4 books today, as every time we do the world of books, and we are going to discuss these books. And the rule of the game is read them, or toss them, or skim them. And we'll start right away talking about these 4 books' names before we go to the break. The first book is by Somerset Maugham, I Was a Spy. Interesting, huh? Another book is The Mexican Wife by Dr. Iman Yahya. And the famous book of Mikawi Saeed, The Rats of the Ship. And an interesting book by Dr. Mustafa Al-Fi'i, Characters on the Road. And these are the 4 books of this beautiful afternoon in Radio Cairo. Stay with us. We're going to talk about every one of them. So right away we're going to start with a novel by Somerset Maugham, I Was a Spy. And Somerset Maugham was by training a physician, education as a physician. He was born in 1874 in the UK, and his family was a family of lawyers, and his brother even was a Secretary of Foreign Affairs in the United Kingdom. But he has decided that he's not going to be a lawyer, probably because his parents died in early age, and he was raised by his uncle, who was a lawyer, and he was a very cold person towards him. So Somerset Maugham decided to study medicine, and during his years of study of medicine, he was exposed to the fear and the sickness of the poor. And in this period of time, he decided to start writing. And his novel, the first one, was received a lot of fame. This was Lisa of Lambeth in 1897, when he was 23 years old. And this book in particular has gave him the courage to quit medicine and start his career as a writer. And he was one of the best paid writers, especially in the 1930s. He had a very colorful life, and we are interested in this part of his life, in how he worked during World War I as in the Red Cross. And World War I started in 1914 to 1916. When in 1916 he changed his career and was engaged in with the intelligence service of His Majesty the King Army. And he served in Geneva, in France, and of course in Russia before the revolution. And from this particular period of time, he has used all the information he has gained as a master spy, working under the patron of the head spy of them all. I mean, the head of the intelligence was a colonel in the British Army, and he was living in Paris. And Somerset Maugham worked as his senior agent in Geneva. And through writing this novel, which almost written or translated in Arabic in the word I Was a Spy, but originally it was not named so. It was originally had another name that was not as attractive by for the Arabic reading. So it was called the Ashenden British Agent. And Ashenden is the guy who is almost the biographer or Somerset Maugham. So when we're talking about Somerset Maugham, about his life and his weird life, we might not be interested in his personal life as much as we are interested in his novels and plays, which became very, very famous. After World War I, he stayed and worked in the Riviera in France, and after the invasion of Germany to France in 1940, he left France on a transport ship, and went to the United States of America, where he lived until the age of 91. So he lived a very long life, producing a lot of books and novels. And for us, this book of interest, which is what I Was a Spy, or the Ashenden, British Agent, is definitely an interesting book. Somerset Maugham has a very special type of writing, and he is going into details, but not into extensive details. So he will describe to you the character, he will describe to you the person, how he is wearing his clothes. So you will exactly imagine. That's why most of his novels and his characters were easily changed into movies and in theater as well, because he's describing the character, making it very easy for any director or any reader per se to imagine the looks and the appearance of these characters. And he was, or the writer or the hero of these papers, is somebody who was more or less interested in exposing the spies themselves, or exposing, working in counter-espionage, describing different behaviors of the spies in an active country, which is Switzerland. Switzerland, of course, was a neutral country in First World War, and therefore it was a site where most of the spying channels and the spying agencies all were working together, as the common borders of Switzerland with France and Germany made it easy for the officers of both sides to find their way to the other side, to Switzerland, and to get more instructions and information. And of course the spies would go and deliver their information. So when we talk about Ashenden, how he was writing about his work and how he's going, and the different types of characters that he met, and for example how they were, he and one of the professional killers who was coming from Latin America, from Mexico, were given the mission to kill an important spy, and by mistake this professional killer killed an innocent man. So this is part of war. How we have different looks and different opinions on the sides of people who are working. So, for example, there was an Indian man who was a revolutionary, a man against the invasion and against the occupation of Britain to India, and during World War I he has taken on his heart the way to sabotage all the work of the British, as a sort of, because he said, as always people would say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So he worked for the British, for the German espionage service, and he tried to get more information about Britain. So he was considered by the British espionage service as an important foe and an enemy, and therefore it was up to the hero or the champion of this novel to try to get him and to nail him, and to at least arrest him, and make a lot of plans to arrest him until he was finally caught. So reading these details, talking about the emotions of the people, of different parts of emotions, and the scene, the master scene, that every short chapter, because he has decided to make this book in the form of different chapters. Each chapter is dealing with a case or an espionage case that he has examined. So when we look at how Somerset Maugham has decided to describe every character in particular, how he described the behavior of these characters under stress, and how he described the hopes and the despair, and the love and the hate. An interesting book by Somerset Maugham, one of the most famous writers of the 20th century, who started his fame of the early 19th century. His long life led to him to be one of the great producers of novels and literature and plays, and his odd way of living has definitely attracted the attention of the people who were around him, and up till now people are discussing his different interests in life. But still we can say the man was a very talented writer in describing the emotions of human beings. So I Was a Spy by Somerset Maugham, or the Ashenden British Agent, the Ashenden British Agent. This is a book by Somerset Maugham, which I think should deserve to be a good summer reading. So we're still coming to you from Studio 3 live from Radio Cairo. This is World of Info. Stay tuned with us after the break. So we're still listening to the World of Info, and today is the World of Books, and the second book is a really interesting book. It's called The Mexican Wife, and it's by Dr. Iman Yahya. Dr. Iman Yahya is a gentleman, he's not a lady. You know, Iman is a common name, can be men or females, males or females. And this time it's a professor. He's a professor in one of the medical faculties in Egypt, and he has had the two books. One of them was the first of Writing Using a Scalpel in 2013, and this interesting book, The Mexican Wife. Well, that's an interesting book. It's always lovely to find a novel inside a novel, and this is the way that Dr. Iman Yahya has introduced to us. There is a famous story that one of the famous novels written by our great writer Yusuf Idris was a sort of a biography that he married in his early life. Before he married the mother of his children, he married a foreigner, and this foreigner he met in one of the conferences that he attended in the early 50s, and they lived together for 1 year. She lived with him in Cairo, and then she left, and there was a divorce, and then 5 or 6 years later Dr. Yusuf Idris got married to his great wife, Egyptian wife. So is this true or not? Actually, the story goes, or the novel that Yusuf Idris has written was about the story of a man who had this story. How much is this story related to the truth? This we can never really discuss or find. So Dr. Iman Yahya didn't use the name of Dr. Yusuf Idris as the main character of the novel, but there are some rumors that it is true. So we are not discussing whether this was true or false, but we are discussing the novel from the perspective of Dr. Iman Yahya. Dr. Iman Yahya has made a character, the main character of his own novel, in which inside it is the novel of the other novel, is that he is talking about a professor of literature in the American University in Cairo, and this fictitious character has met one of his students who is an Egyptian, American, Mexican. Wow, that's a very big combination. And this young lady has come to have a master's degree in Arabic literature, and he is the professor responsible for her thesis, and they are discussing, and she's discussing the work of the famous writer, and of course not naming Dr. Yusuf. So she's talking about a famous writer who has written a book, and in this book she wants to know whether this book is true or false. Is it having anything that is related to truth, or it's just a fictitious novel that was written by the famous novelist? So we are interested to know what was written in the first novel. How far is this first novel related to the truth, and how far is the characters are evolving, and how much is the professor of the American University, the writer or the main character in the novel of Iman Yahya, is a man who is becoming more or less interested in the novel, interested in the writer, and interested in the researcher. And the story goes like that. How far it is related to the truth, we'll never know by the end of the pages of the book. But we are going to be very fascinated and impressed with the early 50s of Egypt. We are going to be impressed by the characters, and we are going to be impressed by the exchange of the characters, and by the feverish research work done by the young lady, and later on she loses her interest in that work, and we're not going to discuss why, because this is for you to find out. And the work that has this infection of muse has been transferred to the mind and the imagination of this professor of literature, who decided to give up some of his valuable time in research, trying to find how much is this story related to the truth. Why? Because this Mexican young lady, is the daughter of one of the most famous painters in Mexico. and this is the true story. And he was married to one of the most famous, as a second wife, most famous painters of all time and artists. And this is Freda, the lady who had a very important American movie produced about her and about her character. And also the character of the young lady who is the daughter of this man, who is the main character, or the one who suggested that she married to this Egyptian writer. She became later on very famous. And so these are important non-fictitious characters who have been living in Mexico City, and had a great impact and influence on the work of art and on everything that is related to this work. And knowing that the work of this great Mexican painter is considered to be one of, and his name of course is Diego Rivera, is one of the most important painters ever in Mexico. And that even Carlos Ghosn, the famous rich Mexican Syrian billionaire, has decided to build one of the most beautiful museums in the world and in Mexico City, and is dedicated to the art, and including all types of arts, and of course is including a great amount or collection of work by Diego Rivera, and of course by his wife Freda. So how far is Ruth related to this novel? How far is Ruth the character that we are interested to know, whether she was married to this Egyptian novelist or not? We're really not going to understand how far is this true story, or it's just fictitious. So the romantic dream and the going between romance, truth, fiction, and all these put and knitted carefully and beautifully together in a novel of almost 320 pages. This is interesting. I think it's a great work that we should always compliment Dr. Iman Yahya for writing. The Mexican wife. How far is it related to truth or fiction? It's not important. How far the real characters have changed or have gone into fiction? This is interesting. How far was Ruth, or did Ruth Rivera ever visit Egypt and get married to a writer who became then famous? We'll never know. But what we're going to know is this is a beautiful novel. This is a novel about the mixed cultures and how love usually cannot conquer all. So, an interesting book by Dr. Iman Yahya, The Mexican Wife, a novel, as he has described it. A book that deserves to be read. We're talking today about summer reading in the summer of Cairo. This is World of Info, and we're still coming live from Studio 3. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad is at the control. Please stay with us after the break. So this is World of Info, and today is the world of books. And we have another third book in a row, which is also good summer reading. And it's by the one and only Mikawi Said. It's called The Rats of the Ship. And wow, or the Ship Rats. Mikawi Said. How can I really describe this gentleman? A Cairene who loved Cairo, lived in Cairo always. Everybody who walked the streets of Cairo or sat in the famous coffee shops of Cairo must definitely have seen Mikawi Said sitting or sipping a cup of tea, writing on a piece of paper, or discussing with his good friends certain things, and he was a very kind and loving man, and he was really a very decent gentleman. Unfortunately, Mikawi Said, we lost him maybe a year or two ago, and when we read his book, definitely will become very interested to read all his books. He had a beautiful bestseller 2 or 3 years back, maybe 4, and it's called To Love You, Jihan. I mean, in Arabic it's called An Tuhibbak Jihan. So this continuation of a sentence, what if Jihan loves you? And Jihan is the main character of the novel that keeps you knitted to the book which is almost 700 pages. From page to page, you want to know the final countdown on the final things that happened for this gentleman who really loved Jihan. So when we talk about Fi'ran al-Safina or the ship rats, well, this is something else. It's a novel. It's a novel by Mikawi Said, and I find it very bitter, very gloomy. And I knew that it was very famous, and I knew that it has part of its blackness inside, but I couldn't really imagine how black it was until I read it, and I have mixed feelings. Well, when you read this book, you would say, oh, I shouldn't have missed that. But when you come out of reading this book, wow, this was harsh. This was very hard. These characters are very gloomy, and the main character has suffered a lot and made people around it suffer a lot. And the end is very bitter, I warn you. But Mikawi Said takes you through the pages and through the lines, and this is his talent. I mean, you cannot stop reading the book, and at the same time, you really want to stop. So this could be really a success of a novel. I believe so. I believe that the hard work of Mikawi Said in the knitting of this novel and in describing the different characters in this novel, how the progress of these characters went on regularly, discussing the lives and the times of the main character, who was born into a lower middle class family, with the father leaving the country, going abroad for, as it happened in the late 60s and the early 70s, of a lot of our people going up to the Gulf areas and sending money to the family. And by sending this money to the family, the whole family will get nourished, and they will have a father figure in the background, that the father who will always come very infrequently. And when he comes, he will be like a stranger. He will not be a welcome father to stay for the 12 months of the year. He will come for 1 month, a vacation, coming up with gifts and coming up with certain controls. And the family will be very, very happy when he's coming, and they're much, much happier when he leaves. But in this particular novel, we find that the character of the father left and never came back. So that in the first few pages of the novel you would say, oh, maybe he died over there. But who's sending the money? He's sending them tapes, he's sending them gifts, he's sending them money, and he's taking this money and sending it to his brother-in-law, the character of the brother-in-law of the novelist or of the writer. And so we never see this father. We never feel his warmth. We never feel his love to the family. And we will find a secret in the end of the novel. We'll understand what kept him apart from this family for decades. How the mother suffered bitterly. How the son suffered without the control of the father. How the brother-in-law ruled and controlled, and then felt very different feelings when the son became a man and started blackmailing the brother-in-law. How this gentleman fared in school, and how did he fare in the university? How far he was related to what's happening in the 70s in Cairo, with the war, with the demonstrations of 1977, with the aftermath of these demonstrations, with the opening up of the economy. How much has changed the country, and how much Cairo has changed, and how much was the character, or the main character, changed and metamorphosed. Was it going to be a good character or a bad character? Or it's just like the ship rats. And you know the famous feeling or the saying about ship rats. They are the first who have the instinct of fear. So whenever the ship is sinking, they will be leaving the ship. So was the condition really sinking? What happened and pushed the main character to be a shipwrecked? Did he leave the ship, or he stayed in the ship but wearing his life jacket? How far he was related to his colleagues, the revolutionary, and how far was his love affair with the different ladies he has seen? How far is this main character related to the life and times of a human being we might have seen or what we might have met? What makes the end so dramatic and mediocre is simply because it's a novel in the end. Mekawi Said wanted to give us the impact that yes, these people could be living around you, they could be going around you, but the end is definitely so fictitious. You would say, and you come out with the one conclusion: yes, this is a novel, this is a fictitious novel. But actually, the characters and their attitudes all through the novel are so real, and they are the combination of a lot of people you have seen in your life that have passed by you, and maybe you know one of them or two of them at least. So, The Shipwrecks by Mekawi Said, a novel of the summer reading in the summer of Cairo. Interesting. Any book that Mekawi Said writes, but I'm still very biased with his famous book, What Happens If Jihan Loves You. But The Shipwrecks is a good book. How far you will stand to read it, I don't know. It was a great challenge to me to finish the book, and a great frustration to read the final pages. But why not? Not all the novels have happy endings. Anyway, stay with us and stay tuned with us with the world of info and the world of books. So we're still listening into World of Info, and today is the World of Books. And our fourth book today is a lovely book written by Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay, Characters on the Road. And Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay is a gentleman who is multi-talented gentleman, a real diplomat, a writer, a distinguished writer, an academic, a man who has a PhD degree about the Christians in Egypt and the Copts in Egypt, and a very well-known diplomat who held a lot of posts in his life, and now he's the current president of the or the Director General of the Bibliotheca Alexandria. And of course I know him pretty well, and he's a good, very dear, respected friend of mine, and I really enjoy every time I meet him, though I know nowadays he's very busy, but definitely reading the writings and listening to the work of Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay, and whether these are interviews or talk shows, wherever he appears, he's a man of multi-talents, and he is one of the best storytellers in Egypt, I believe so. And he's always having a novel story that he discusses with full of details and mimics and colors and characters that you can really, when you're listening to all his stories, you can feel that you are like him was and is and will be an eyewitness of all his narratives, beautiful narration. And so when he writes a book, he always said in one of his writings that he likes to dictate books and dictates whatever is in his mind to somebody who is writing after him. And yes, the characters on the road are a combination of articles that Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay has written in one of the great Egyptian newspapers, and it is discussing characters that he met personally. And Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay, as an encyclopedic man, is a very social man, and therefore he has met a lot. And he kept in his memory, I believe definitely, he has written a lot of memos about these meetings, which make the characters really living, because you cannot, as a human being, a real human being, can really remember fine details and fine-tuned details about meetings or events that you have had 30 or 40 or 50 years back. So when Dr. Mustafa Al-Fay is describing this instance vividly, this means definitely he has carefully taken notes. And this is what makes these characters and these short essays as a sort of a real eyewitness of the analysis of these characters to the situations that he has seen them, and he always say, I've seen this character in the following situation when I was working in this job or in that job, and I encountered them, I talked with them, and my impression was so and so, and how far did they fare in their life afterwards. So this is interesting. And when you look at the book, which is about 400 pages, I think, yes, 350 pages, when you look at this book and you'll find the characters that he has described, wow. The gentleman has met a lot of people, he has met a lot of interesting people, and he has, as a real good gentleman diplomat, he has decided to start the book with ladies first. And he has given us stories and tales about famous ladies he met. And one of them is Indira Gandhi. And for me, Indira Gandhi is a very important character in the perspective of humanity. And I had the luck to visit India last year to attend the Congress over there. And I made a point in visiting the home of Indira Gandhi, which was also the home of her son Rajiv. And also I went to visit the home of her father, Nehru, the Prime Minister of India. So going and passing through the house or the home of Indira Gandhi and examining how far this place is a very modest place. It's not an extravagant palace, it's not a palace that is full of everything, but it's a very comfortable home. And the most important thing that you find in this home is the personalization of it. And the personalization is the photographs that are hung on the wall of very important characters and human beings that she has met. And of course, the most important thing is a library that is rich in books that Indira Gandhi has wasted all her life reading, understanding, and trying to solve the problem of her great country of India. Nobody really can understand the wealth and at the same time the unique effect of India as much as somebody who worked there or visited there or served there. And Dr. Mustafa Al-Faqih served in India in the capacity of a counselor in the Egyptian embassy in India from 1979 till 1983 or 84. So for him, examining and living in India was an experience of a lifetime. And for him to see and to feel the presence of Indira Gandhi, this is something which is very important. And to look and see how Indira Gandhi has behaved and dealt with the wife of President Nasser when she was invited. Indira Gandhi insisted on inviting her to visit India and went receiving the wife of Gamal Abdel Nasser in the airport of New Delhi and opening the grand reception room of the great airport just to admit in it Tahiyya Abdel Nasser, the wife of Tahiyya Kazan, the wife of Gamal Abdel Nasser. So Indira Gandhi was a very emotional person. In spite of that, everybody thinks that she was a woman of a heart like steel. No, it was not. It was not like that. She listened carefully, she understood carefully, and she talked less than she thought. And this is very important. So when Dr. Mustafa Al-Faqih decides to start the first character in his very interesting book about Indira Gandhi, this is an inclination of how people should deal with Indira Gandhi as a very respectful lady, a lady or a daughter of her time and a daughter of India who has suffered all through her life. She lost her son, her beloved son, and later on she was a victim to assassination, and after that her son, who became the prime minister, was also assassinated. So writing about Indira Gandhi is something that I really admire from Dr. Mustafa Al-Faqih, and the fact that he has decided to start writing the book about it, about the first character to be Indira Gandhi, is something of a great importance. The characters that he presented are very colorful ladies. For example, he wrote about Tahiyya Abdel Nasser, about Jahan Sadat. Mrs. Jahan Sadat is very well known for her intelligence and charm. And everybody who met or encountered Mrs. Jahan Sadat has noticed how sharp she is, and how very soft-spoken and always capable of attracting the attention of the people and attracting their love and admiration. She is definitely a very charismatic person, and Dr. Mustafa was able to grab this image and this important photograph in just 2 or 3 pages. Writing about Dr. Aisha Ratib, who was a professor in university, an ambassador, and of course a very well-known minister for a very long time of the social affairs of Egypt. Definitely she is a very rich character, somebody who has left an important image on the whole of Egypt. The main characters are also very important to discuss. Dr. Mustafa didn't only characterize the characters that we meet in our life, but he has described some of the very important people that maybe sometimes people don't really understand how much they are, or their effect on the world. Dr. Brahim Badran is considered, or I consider him to be one of the great professors of surgery of Egypt, and at the same time a man who had, of course, an important school teaching and educating surgeries all through his life. Giving him a chapter is definitely important. Dr. Rushdie Said as an important and one of the most important geologists of Egypt, somebody who was responsible for teaching and educating thousands of Egyptian geologists in the university. Definitely a man who deserves to be respected, knowing and understanding geology of Egypt by importance and by chance, of course. And going through other books, talking other chapters, including the famous characters of Anis Mansour or Tawfiq al-Hakim or Saleh Salim and Salah Abd Sabur, who was the famous poet who died because of his extensive and severe sensitivity. The man who simply was insulted by some of his friends, saying that you are doing a sort of normalization of the relation between Egypt and Israel when you were famous for being against Israel. And of course this is a false accusation of Salah Abd Sabur, one of the greatest Egyptian poets who have ever lived. When he was accused by that, he simply couldn't stand it, and he died from a heart attack 2 hours later. So talking about these important characters will definitely attract our attention to the famous times and lives of Egyptians that Dr. Mustafa Al-Fei was lucky enough to see them and meet them in person, and they themselves were lucky enough for Dr. Mustafa to grab their photo and immortalize the moment that he met with them, and writing about important certain points. When he discussed the times and lives of Yusuf Idris or Yahya al-Fakhrani, or people like Omar al-Sharif or Ammar al-Shirai, definitely I think that it is very definite and important to examine the work and the characters on the road. So meeting Dr. Mustafa Al-Fei by chance, on live, this is very important for anyone to meet him in person, to discuss with him a lot of things, and examine all the stories that he will tell you as one of the greatest living storytellers, but also as a writer. He's definitely writing about important points in the lives and times of the characters that he met. A book that deserves to be read, Characters on the Road by Dr. Mustafa Al-Fei. So today, in this afternoon in Radio Cairo, I've given you an idea about 4 books that I believe are of great interest. The first book was by Somerset Maugham, which is called I Was a Spy, that's in Egyptian translation, but the true name of it is Ashenden, a British agent. The Mexican Wife by Dr. Iman Yahya, a novel that deserves to be read. And The Shipwrights by Mikawi Said, a black novel. I think you will read it, but be prepared for some frustrations and some. It's very dramatic. Again, it's really very dramatic. But I have to say so. The Mexican Wife is a novel, A real novel with mastering of fictitious characters and real characters, and going in between to and fro definitely is very, very important. So examining the lives and the times of Ruth Diego Vera, a daughter of the famous artist Diego Vera, the Mexican artist, and Diego Rivera. He's a very famous artist, and this is the lives and the times of his daughter. But actually, did she ever come to Egypt? Did she ever get married to this important novelist of Egypt? We never know, but we'll be very interested to read the novel from first page to the last one. And finally, but last but not least, is the work of Dr. Mustafa Al-Fiqi, Characters on the Road, and definitely an interesting book examining the characters of a lot of people that Dr. Mustafa in his colorful career has seen, examined, and mixed and matched with them. So today was the World of Info. My name is Dr. Amr Mabrouk. Dua Muhammad was at the controls. I hope and I wish you a very pleasant weekend, and see you next week, same time, same station, Radio Cairo, FM 95.4.